Good day friends. Till now we were discussing about the various Kubernetes objects and how do we create those objects using imperative method. Now we have another method called declarative method. In declarative method we will have a reference file. In that reference file we will define the parameters and finally we will call from the kubectl utility. So in this case the beauty is, if you are just building a Kubernetes object, the imperative method is more than enough. But especially if you are building the solution for some specific applications, that applications possess some extra features like the persistent volume, or that pod has to be scheduled on a specific node, or some specific scheduler has to be scheduled that particular pod. In that case, using imperative, a one-line command is not sufficient enough to deploy the pod. So let's move on to the declarative method of creating Kubernetes objects. For that, it is as simple as we will open a file called pod.yaml. We will be creating a file called .yml, YAML file. So the advantage here is we can define each and everything in that particular file. So the major features to be updated here, we are gonna create a pod. So API version, it's a version control. We can declare it as v1. API version is v1. Now kind means what kind of Kubernetes object are we gonna create. Here we are gonna create pod. Now metadata. Metadata is as simple as the data about the data. Basically, data about the data in the sense, what are we gonna create? We are gonna create pod. So that data, then data about the data, what pod are we gonna create it? That is, we will call some name, right? So that is called the metadata. And few more details or the properties, like how are we gonna call it, like labeling, that also will come under metadata category. So we will update that as first name. Name is, we will call here it as our nginx pod. Then labels, we will put the labels called name. We can put it as we can put something like type is called app. Then we can mention here as category front end. We can define a number of labels. Now metadata, we have defined it. Now we have to define the specifications, I mean the properties of this particular pod. Here one thing we have is containers. We are going to create multiple containers or we can create multiple containers or one container, XYZ, right? So I told already in the previous session, pod is kind of an encapsulate form of Kubernetes atomic object. So we can create one or more containers and pack it in a pod and deploy on a Kubernetes cluster, so that we will mention the first container name. It is called, we can mention that nginx. Then image name, also I'll put nginx. Now I will mention the other one name Redis. I'm gonna create two containers in a single pod. Image Redis. Now we will go this way. kubectl create -f pod.yaml, right? Sorry, here I have created again, let me show you some interesting stuff here. I declared all the parameters in this YAML file, then I call it using the kubectl utility for create kubectl create -f pod.yaml. So whatever the parameters within the pod.yaml, it will refer it and create the Kubernetes object. Here what happened is error validating pod.yaml. So Kubernetes tried to validate this. By that time it has identified that validation error pod metadata unknown field labels. Here there's a typo encountered. So what we need to do is we have to clear the typo. Pod.yaml. I'll come to you guys. Why did I mention all these parameters in a specific way? I'll let you know that. Let's create it first. Alright, kubectl get pods, that is being created. Now the containers are creating. All are running fine now. Right, now let's see that cat space pod.yaml. I have mentioned the API version. For Kubernetes, it is API version is v1. If we refer the Kubernetes documentation, we can see that the version numbering. Now the second parameter is kind. What kind of Kubernetes objects are we creating? So it's called pod. We have defined that. The next is metadata. As we told, metadata is data about the data. So metadata is kind because it's a term which is having a specific some specific properties. Like we have a computer, that computer will have some specific properties. Like our laptop, it is Acer or Lenovo laptop. and its processor is Core i5, memory is 4 GB, then hard disk is 1 TB, then graphics card is NVIDIA, in such a way. So that is particularly a property of that product, right? Like that, here we have metadata. Metadata is having some properties. That properties we will mention here. So name we defined straightforward here. Again, the second property is label. Labels are different types. So if we again consider the laptop, the metadata means in this case, if it will come as kind is laptop here, then metadata means name, it's either Lenovo or HP or whatever. Again, the labels, a type we can define it, like laptop for gaming, then laptop for Lenovo laptop for gaming, then like that we can classify it. Now that labels, again, the type is for gaming, then some type is for business, some type for students, some type for what we say, data entry purpose, etc. So that way we can define the type. Then category again, it is some business class category will be there, some budget category will be there. That way depends upon the product make, how do we. So if we want to select that particular, okay, list all the business class laptops ranges available in the Lenovo, let's print it here. So it will print that. So that for that reason we will create multiple products, right? The same way we have to label it. This label is having, again, it is in dictionary format. Label is having multiple properties. Each properties we can define in a key value pair format. Next is spec. Spec is as simple as the specification of the product. So what are we gonna define? In this case, this is my container. So the container should have some certain what we say specifications. So the container should have some dedicated what we say, the container should have some dedicated image. I think some nginx, what should be the nginx image name, and what should be that container name. If I create 1 or 10 or 15 containers, that container name we should mention, and that container image name should mention. So what will happen is, while the kubectl will refer this file and it will download the particular image from that repository and name it like nginx or redis, whatever it is, and it will deploy on the Kubernetes cluster. So that's it. And again, we have some other version also we can some other parameters also we can mention, some port numbers. If it wants to listen some ports, some port number 80, nginx wish to listen the port number 80, we can define the port number, and we can mention the node name manually. If we want to provision the container, I mean port, we can define the that parameters as well. Like if we want to define some memory, for example, I will show you that as kubectl get ports here. Now nginx port is running 2x2, it is running. Let's look at it. Mine so wide, it's in node 3. Now I am going to delete it. Kubectl delete for nginx. kubectl parts delete nginx. Oh sorry. kubectl delete ports nginx. Oh, again. kubectl delete ports nginx. kubectl get ports. Alright, I was doing a mistake. kubectl delete ports nginx pod. It has been deleted. Now kubectl, before that let us edit one thing. Vi pod.yaml. I will mention here something. I'm gonna provision it manually. So one thing I can do, I can define the node name, so it will provision on that particular node, or if I wish I can define some scheduler name so that it can schedule on that particular node, or if I want to define some, what to say, let's create it. kubectl create -f, then pod.yaml -v. It will be, oh sorry, purpose output is not there. Okay, kubectl get parts -o wide. It is, if you look at here, it is deploying on the node 2. Container is creating. Now kubectl get pods. Both the containers are running fine, well and good. Now we wish to connect it, so kubectl get svc, means service. So we have a default service called cluster IP, supported by the Kubernetes. Anyway, that service, the service topic is quite wide. We have to discuss about cluster IP, then node port, and a load balancer. These three parameters we have to define it. That we will discuss later. Now one more thing I will let you know before you leave. So cat space pod.yaml. In this I have defined containers, right? So I have the right to give the values the way which I give here, because metadata is having different properties. Because metadata is there, metadata is having metadata name here, and metadata and labels are there. These all values are just focused on this particular thing, I mean metadata. But if we come into the case of containers, what is happening with containers? Containers means there will be one, as I told you, one or more containers will be there. So these values should not mix together. So we have to create an array. We have to keep the values in an array and we have to call it from that array. Whereas the metadata is having the data is segregated here in the form of dictionary, because metadata and its name, then its labels, and what some other features are there, means we will update that as well. But containers spec properties are there. Containers, how many containers are there, that is one of the property. So we can just like that we can place here. Then where it should place it, all the containers should place in one node, so that we have mentioned it. But again excuse me, the containers, again we have one or more containers, so that data we have to keep it in a separate pockets, and from that pockets we have to call it, else it will conflict together. So for that we have given a hyphen. Hyphen stands for an array. So array means name of the container and image name of the container. So what will happen is Kubernetes will fetch this particular Nginx image from the repository and install it and name it as Nginx. And same way the Redis image will download from the repository and name it as Redis. In place of Redis, I can give any other name called database container, whatever it is. So this is a short overview about the YAML file system, I mean YAML file and Kubernetes object creation in declarative method. So we will discuss more in the upcoming lectures, and the concept also will be discussed in a detailed manner. Thank you so much for your time, and I would be happy if you can raise some if you can share your doubts or your valuable feedbacks, so that I can improve myself. Thank you so much, and have a great day.